me I'm on nothing. Now you know.
Thank you to NOSA for the inspiring and educational leadership moments. That's how you do it, y'all.
Everyone feeling good still? Everyone still feeling good? All right. All right, we're gonna get the show moving. It's now my pleasure to introduce our next moderator, a dynamic leader and a true force for change in the tech space. Please join me in welcoming Moshe Gibbs, here to guide us through an engaging and impactful discussion. Give a round of applause.
I want you to take over control. Plug it in and turn me on. I want you to take over control. Take over control.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you guys. Are you guys having a great time today? Yes. All right. As Brendan said, my name is Moshe Gibbs. I am a Senior Global Partner Marketing Manager at Microsoft. I lead co-marketing efforts with two of Microsoft's top partners, being ServiceNow and NVIDIA. And I'm so excited to be here with everyone today. I'm going to jump right in and let our panel introduce themselves.
Hi everyone. My name is Jérôme Paris. I'm partner at PwC Canada.
Hello everyone. My name is Emile McLean, Head of Business Development and Growth Strategy at Manulife.
Hello everyone. Chris Fraser from Citigroup, and I head up Markets and Transformation Design.
Hello everyone, my name is Sharon Alma Ebanyat. I'm the Research Director for the Healthcare Industry at Infotech Research Group.
We see Chris and Sharon has their fan club here, so we're excited. It's going to be a great conversation. Our panel today is called Surviving and Thriving in Tech, Overcoming Career Roadblocks. And we are really excited to jump right in because, as you know, that no career is linear. And we have industry vets up here who are going to share real life experiences with everyone, just around how they're building resilience, navigating challenges, and also getting over burnout, which is something I definitely do because I'm a workaholic. I always have burnout. And we really want everyone to know that they're not just surviving, they're thriving in tech. So we're going to jump right into the first question. And we would love to hear from you, Churu, first. Can you share a personal story about a significant roadblock that you've encountered in your career, and how have you managed to overcome it? And also, give the audience just some key lessons that you may have learned from that.
Yeah, no, as you said, it's definitely not linear. So I was born and raised in Guadeloupe, and then I left Guadeloupe when I was about 18 years old. And then for university, I started university in the south of France. And then I let you imagine what networks was meaning to me at that time. Almost nothing. For me, that was pretty new in that environment. And then I really realized when I was doing my master's degrees that if you want to find an internship, you need to have network. You need to be connected to the market and understand how things are working, and you need to know the people and being there, right? So for me, that was my first roadblock. It was extremely hard for me to land my first internship. I probably sent over 100 applications, and then finally had one. And I was seeing all my friends having nice internship in nice companies. And then as you can imagine, it's pretty important to start well. So you often want to land the best internship to start well. So it was pretty difficult. So I quickly understood that I need to build this network, and then I was able to land my first job after internship through networking. So that was really the key lessons learned for me at the beginning. Connect to people, and then get to know the market, and then the people to get those opportunities.
That's awesome. Just something I would like to just expand on just a little bit there was around networking. That's something I definitely use a lot in my career, and I network before I need to network. So everyone is here, you're building relationships. That's one piece of advice I definitely would throw out there. While you're networking, making sure that you build those relationships after this event before you actually need to tap into that network is so important. So we're gonna pass it on over to Emil to also go into the same question.
Yeah, a roadblock that I faced, and I still face it to this day, but one particular time a few years ago, I was getting passed over for a particular set of roles that kept coming up. And the thing that really burned me the most was that I knew I was better than the individuals that were taking those spots. And what came down to it was networking, as we're all talking about, is really going down the hallway, getting to know individuals in the business that you're trying to get into, understand the challenges that they're facing. And the biggest thing I realized was, you know, as much as I knew what I was capable of, the individuals that were interested in hiring didn't necessarily realize the skill set that I had. You know, I was affiliated with the role that I'm in, which doesn't necessarily reflect who you are. So part of the point of not only just networking and getting to know people, but helping educate people of what you can actually do. And even going as far as to, you know, you have to be careful with this, not overcommit yourself, but maybe find opportunities where you can take on some stretch projects or things like that to demonstrate your talent. And that was the learning that came out of it for me. It's just really, you know what you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone knows that. So the importance of networking, understanding the problems that, you know, the areas that you're trying to get into, what they're trying to solve, and speaking to that is critical, especially when, you know, when you're against all odds.
Awesome. Just a follow-up question to that is, how were you able to, I guess, in what platform or what way were you able to actually share? Were you sharing with your leaders, you know, all the great things you were doing? Like, how did you go about doing that?
It's trying to find time in schedules. So, you know, there are some leaders who unfortunately may not make time a day for you, and I question how much of a leader they are if they're not interested in understanding who's in their company. But it's trying to find time and schedules, and really being curious about their world. So as much as you're trying to demonstrate your talents, you need to make it relatable to them. And really, how did I do it? It's just knocking on doors, sending emails, and the odd time, if you're a bit intimidated of maybe reaching out to a senior executive, it's maybe leveraging your leader to open a door or have someone in your network make that introduction.
I agree. I think earlier backstage, Sharon and I were talking, and something that you said was about SMART, like bringing in the data, kind of like how you frame it up helps really get the message through. So I agree with that. So we're not going to skip over you, Chris. I see you staring at me. So go right ahead. You can jump in.
You know, I've had more than a few roadblocks. We will all have them in our careers. But I find that we are oftentimes our own roadblocks. And I had a leadership moment where I felt my growth was inevitable. I think similar, right? You know that you've put in the work, you've put in the commitment, the output is there. But I had a leader once face me directly. He said, I want to talk to you about your career. He said, I want you to know that this is not the moment for your growth, but I don't want you to respond in this moment because I know that that moment is ahead of you. And the lesson that I learned was patience. Not to respond in that moment, but also not to assume that others don't care for my journey. You have to curate those relationships that enable your journey. If you don't, then what happens is you will have more work to do, and you will find yourself dedicating more time to uncovering your own roadblocks than facing them and getting over them.
I agree with that. Sharon, did you want to add on?
Yeah, sure. So I had a situation where early in my career, I did a leadership training program that would literally accelerate your career from something that would take 5 to 10 years to about 2 years. So early in my career, I was in a leadership role, and only a month into my role, my boss unfortunately had to go on medical leave. So we had a 60-plus physician practice and 2 departments. And during that time, the lead of the division reached out to me and said, hey, you're going to be lead these 2 departments for the next, however many weeks. And that was pretty daunting for me. So he did mention and told me that he's committed to making sure that I was successful at this. So being the only black woman, obviously, in that role in the leadership team, it was very daunting, but he made sure that every single day we had prep meetings in the morning, looked at the calendar for the day, he coached me in all the meetings, and at the end of the day, we debriefed. And because I was now in charge of everything, my phone was ringing every minute of the day, and I was juggling, doing payroll, I was juggling managing our digital solutions for the department, I was looking at physician onboarding, helping with patient access, patient issues, it was like chaos. And within 2 weeks, I actually started to feel the burnout of it. And on top of that, we had inherited a department that had low morale. They had lost confidence in the leadership team. So we're coming in as new leaders to really change the morale. And so with that commitment of him, really having an honest conversation with him was really great because he created a space for me to be able to express how I was feeling and then coached me and gave me some leadership tips on how to turn the morale of the organization and the department around. So what I started doing, I really spent a lot of time talking to my physicians, talking to my teams, really understanding what their grievances were. And what I did is I started taking immediate action and making changes. And within a short time, by the time my boss had come back from medical leave, I had already, not only had I sustained operations, but I had actually exceeded and actually made a lot of changes in the department. And because of that, I got a lot of awards and accolades for that from my team and clinical team. But what stood out for me that was very transformative till today, this leader who's in charge of hundreds of clinicians, hundreds of people, still took the time to really make sure that I was successful during this time. And when it comes to a lot of the mentors that I have and the leaders that I know, he's really at the top of the list. And I shaped the way I led people in my different leadership roles after him because he was very compassionate. He led with empathy and truly was invested in his team. And so that was how I was able to turn a very stressful and challenging time in my career into a positive experience that has set the tone for how I lead my career overall.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I think one word you said in there will take us right into our next conversation was burnout. I know, has anyone ever suffered from burnout? I know I do, very often, but sometimes it's my own fault because I overbook, overcommit, like you said earlier, and I think everyone works daily to try to figure out different strategies that you can implement to actually not run into burnout and not have to face it all the time. So in all of our fast-paced environments, can you guys share ways that you overcome burnout and how you have been working to actually remove it, eliminate it? Because I need to know.
Oh, yeah. I'm still learning a lot about this, definitely, on my end. So I have 4 kids, and then on a day-to-day basis, it's always a challenge, right? So work-life balance is always a challenge, for sure. Regarding burnout, there's a lot about how do we feel and then emotion about situations that are happening on a day-to-day basis, right? So it's a lot about how do we react to this and how do we feel about all of this when there's a lot of pressure, a lot of risk issues that people raise around you as a senior professional. I would say the first thing is to set boundaries, find a way to put block in your calendar somewhat to make sure that you're offline, that you focus on something else at the end of the day or early in the morning and not always think about the work. And I would also say definitely don't put all your eggs in one basket. If your only fulfillment is through your career and your professional objectives, that means you're dependent only on this to feel like you are happy or not. So that's really difficult. So don't give up your personal projects, definitely. Otherwise, you're going to regret or you're going to feel like everything is on your career, and then it's going to be more pressure. It's not going to help you to achieve your professional goal as well. So that's the way for me to do it. I try to make sure I have time with the kids, and then I really feel the fulfillment of being there with them, bring them to their activities, OKs, and everywhere. And I feel I'm better positioned to do my work and then to catch up afterwards because I feel better about it.
Awesome.
Just recognize that your career doesn't define you. If you have a phone that's assigned to you from work, keep it out of your bedroom. Walk away from it. When the weekend hits, enjoy the weekend. Go out with friends. I've struggled with it myself, and there'll be sometimes I'll be walking past my office and I just want to look and just don't do it. It's the worst thing you can do. You can ruin your whole weekend. So that's things that I've been practicing lately, and it's been hard for me, but just, you know, when you get offline, just be offline and just try and connect with people, family, friends, activities, do a hobby, but just don't let work consume you. And it's something that I've always struggled with, and I'm getting better at it now. Partially, I can blame my kids for that. I have to take care of them, so they're a good distraction for me, but just keep the phone away. That's my big thing.
Awesome. Yeah. I work remote. Sorry, we're gonna clap. We're gonna clap.
It's all right.
I was gonna say I work remote, so one thing I just started to do is like I have my separate office. So I'm going to work, and then when I walk out of there, I'm off work. So I close the door and I kind of let that go. And then also the calendar. I'm pretty sure mostly everyone lives by their calendar. I live by my calendar, so I block off walking time, because if not, you can sit there all day and 8, 10, 9, however many hours you work. I intend to just sit there if I don't have it on the calendar. So those are some other things to be able to just walk away and kind of decompress. So Chris or Sharon, did you guys want to share other ways you?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting one because I think in tech, in order to deliver something, we find ourselves a lot of time working with the willingness to complete the task. I'm in design, and I think inherently designers are perfectionists. We do our best to make sure, dare I say, every pixel is in its place. Those designers out there, hopefully there are a few in the crowd that will get what I mean. But I've had to learn and had to ask myself in order to learn it, is my product better that I'm delivering through burnout or through clarity, rest, and time away? I think that those are the traits of good self-management, is understanding that your burnout is not you. It is your willingness to deliver, to complete a task. Know that the task will be there when you take a breath and when you come back from that breath ready to complete it. And I don't have children, I don't have the pleasure, but what I can say is I have made it a very strict rule, and my wife has helped me with this, that my work-life balance is real. And through that, I deliver that for my team as well. I don't expect them to work odd hours to deliver something. If their passion drives them there, then the next day they better not be doing the same thing. They need to get out of that cycle. So it's a routine, you have to build up for it.
I think for me, you know, adding to what Jerome said about calendar hygiene, I think it's also, when you're working in tech, it's fast-paced, you have a lot of priorities. Sometimes you don't do a good job of negotiating deadlines because everything's urgent. And so one thing I've learned is how to negotiate deadlines, because sometimes something is urgent. Have you ever worked on a project that was so urgent, you spent hours on it, and then they were like, you know, the client might need it in 2 weeks, and then you're so distraught. So I've learned to really negotiate, and understand what specifically is needed, or is there flexibility? That way it helps you better prioritize the different projects. And then just on a wellness side of things, I started doing this where every quarter, I just make sure I have a couple of days off every now and then to completely disconnect. So make sure that there's coverage at work and I'm completely off limits, can't contact me on the phone, and I make my team aware of that. So from a wellness side, always making sure that you have other things outside of work that keep you happy and entertained, just like Jerome mentioned, because your work it doesn't define you. There's more to life than your job. You're much bigger than your job, and also that's how you end up growing and finding other activities to be a lot more well-rounded. So that's what I would say is what I do, at least to manage burnout.
You know, can I just add? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Indeed. I was just going to say, find yourself a hobby if you don't have one, because that will take you away from the things that keep you connected to work.
Yeah, I agree. I started golf lessons in the last year because of that, because you can go before work, 9 holes, not the full, because I'll be out there all day, but that's one hobby. So I agree with that. That's a good one. All right, so one of the things that I know, and I don't think everyone suffers for this. I know I'm also one of the people that suffer from imposter syndrome. So recognition, accolades, things of that nature. I'm always like, me? No, why did I deserve this? Even though, like, you know, there are reasons why. But I would love to learn if any of you are suffering or have suffered from imposter syndrome, career stagnation, and if so, like, how do you recommend building resilience dealing with that? And also, can you, you know, how do you maintain your confidence in going through those type of emotions in your career?
Sure, I can start.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so when it comes to imposter syndrome, I have actually changed my perspective on that after having done research on it. It was actually a phenomenon that came about by 2 psychologists who were Pauline Clance and Susan Imes, who studied very high achieving women in the 1970s and found that a lot of these women were considering themselves to be a fluke. They felt like they didn't belong, and it was only because they didn't see people that looked like them in leadership roles. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's unfortunately disproportionately affects people of color and women. And instead of looking at it as something to be fixed, I've shifted the mindset to looking at it as something that is an indication of professional growth. So that's an inflection point for you to know that, you know, this is a point where I'm being stretched, there are new standards that I'm supposed to meet. Because unfortunately, because it disproportionately affects us in these environments, you start to feel like you don't belong. And when you start to separate those two and separate your self-worth from actually the fact that the environments that you might be in might be biased or challenging, then it's a better way to look at imposter syndrome. So I have a better way of reframing it to be like it's an indication of growth, not indicative of your inadequacy. So that's how I've been able to reframe it, and that helps boost your confidence, right? So look for environments that are supportive, and so whenever you feel that way, start to ask yourself, is this an external environmental influence, or is this an indication that I need to, you know, there's a delta between what I know and what I don't know?
I love that. I love that. Anyone else want to take one?
I'll go. Go back this way. Bring it back home at the end. So, you know, I struggle with imposter syndrome, the topic, not actually feeling like an imposter, because I have anxiety about my skills all the time. I think anyone here, especially I've heard a lot about AI, you're hearing a lot about AI, that'll challenge your skills, challenge you to rethink them and re-enable them. I would say this. Your skills today are not who you are. And I mean that in that your skills today are what you know and deliver upon, but it's the skills that your work has not seen. It's unlived potential. But you may have that. I know my day-to-day job, I lead design teams, I can help enable them. But at the same time, I know beyond that, there's so much more. Bring me into a tech conversation, I'm happy to engage. And that's because I'm a sponge and because I'm always honing my skills. So challenge imposter syndrome with skill confidence and knowing that your skills will continue to grow, never stop.
Yeah, I like that.
Something that Chris, you mentioned earlier about, you know, hearing feedback and pausing resonates with me. So I'm always the only black guy in all of the roles that I'm in. I'm in a senior position role now. There's no black person anywhere, and sometimes that like hits me different. Like it makes you think sometimes. And my comments around hearing feedback, and maybe on your comments around hearing feedback, just sitting with it, maybe not reacting, is something that I do that I struggle with. And I don't even have a solution for it. It's more just sharing something that I struggle with related to imposter syndrome is, you know, you might get a compliment. That was a good presentation or a good execution, good that. My initial reaction is, yeah, but how can I improve? Or what did I do wrong? Where can I fix it? And sometimes, you might just need to sit with that a bit and actually take the feedback when it's positive and enjoy it. And recognize that you're in the room for a reason. You're capable, you're getting the feedback, you're getting the accolades because you're doing that thing. And maybe just sit with it a bit before immediately focusing on, okay, but what could I do better? What did I do wrong? What do you think? Are you sure you mean that? Yeah, that's something that I go through almost daily. But yeah, I actually don't have a solution for it other than I like what you said. I'm going to try that.
I liked what I was told, so I'm happy to share it. Yeah.
I think, reframing, like you said, Sharon, and not thinking about it as something, as a negative thing. I enjoy that. Jerome, did you?
No, definitely. What I would add is, it's a lot about seeing it in a different way. The fact that you're different from other people make you feel like you have the imposter syndrome, and that's true, right? And I feel the same. But another way to see it is the fact that you're different also means that you bring a different perspective. That means you bring sometimes different skills. Sometimes you approach issues a different way. Sometimes you see things in a different angle, and I help to find the path forward sometimes, and also bring innovation and being creative as well in your environment. So if you see it in a positive way, that definitely helps, and then you don't always feel like you're gonna, there will be a bad outcome in the situation you live, but more that being comfortable to share your perspective, and the fact that it's different doesn't mean that it's going to be negative, but it's going to be a new one that will help people reach the positive outcome. So it's really about shifting the mindset and see our difference as an advantage, and not something bad for the different context. And same, if we link it back to networking, it's the same. Sometimes when you want to network, sometimes you feel like you're not going to talk to some people because they look different, right? But it's an opportunity because you realize that people remember you and your name because you're different. So if you share your story, if you share your difference, and then embrace the fact that you're different and it's okay, then people will see you, will remember you, and then they will recall you, and then that's going to bring positive outcome to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerome. Last point to that, and then we're going to wrap up. I will say that I just listened to a podcast. It's called The Pivot, and one of my favorite people of all time, Barack Hussein Obama, was on there. And something he said was, sometimes you'll get to these tables and you'll realize, like, there ain't nothing extra going on here. And like that, like I have a hard time with that, especially as I continue to advance. I may be the only me in the room and coming in to present to a table of others, and I automatically will fold. And sometimes you get the feedback and it's like, oh, that wasn't anything that I thought it would be. I put everyone else on a pedestal versus putting myself up there too. So I would just say, like, never doubt yourself. Always go in there thinking that you belong there and show up with that frame of mind. And that's my piece of advice that I'm sharing with everyone. So I would love to get a piece of advice that we want to leave the audience, sharing just a way that that helps you thrive and deal with adversity. Just share a piece of advice, a mantra, whatever it may be that helps you guys thrive in dealing with adversity or overcoming roadblocks. So I will start with Sharon. We're started here, we're going to end over there and come this way.
Yeah, sure. One piece of advice is to be loyal to your journey. The reason why I say this is that, sometimes we get attached to titles, we get attached to company names and being a part of that, but what I mean by being loyal to your journey is looking up at your goals and what you want out of your career. That way, if the company changes, if there are situations that, your role might change, it doesn't take a hit to your self-esteem. That way you can look and say, is this the time that I need to maybe pivot? Are there certain skill sets that I need to get? And always looking and making sure that when you're looking at companies, look at it in terms of like, does this company fit into my journey and my goals? So that's one thing that I do is that I learned earlier on not to get attached to that. And it's much more easier and much easier for you to transition, to pivot, to change when you don't have those attachments, because sometimes it can definitely have a hit on your self-esteem. So just stay loyal to your journey. If an environment, even if it's a brand name, if the environment doesn't fit with your goals or how you would like to succeed, then start looking at other opportunities and other places that do fit in that journey and that goal.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's my piece
Chris?
of advice.
Wow. Yeah, so on the journey point, I think just enable yourself to be constantly dynamic. Don't forget that as everything changes around you, you must change with it or be left behind. Great advice comes when you really put the time and energy and then ensure that advice is received well on your end, and also self-assess.
Awesome.
Not because you're being asked to, but because you can build an action plan.
Awesome. Thank you. Emil?
I'll be quick, just never stop learning, especially in technology. There's so much technology that's coming out, moving fast, all of these new AI tools. Keep learning, educating yourselves about them. Many of us here work in corporations and enterprises. They have professional development budgets set aside that they don't necessarily promote to you, but it's sitting there collecting dust. If there's one thing that I ask all of us to do is go back to your leader and figure out what that budget is, and find opportunities for you to learn.
Thank you.
And add value.
Thank you, Jerome. And we'll wrap it up.
Quickly, I would say embrace a growth mindset. See all the challenge as opportunities to learn. Those are first step toward your success. Don't change your goal, but adjust the plan.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, so much. And that concludes our panel. Thank you.
I want you to take over control.